चलो let's start this paper. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let's see this. Table 1.1 perfect shows some physical quantities. Complete the table by placing a tick next to the scalar quantities. We have to place a tick next to the scalar quantity. Acceleration is not a, okay. So I'm not putting crosses because we have to put a tick. So we have to put a tick in place of the scalar quantities. What are the scalar quantities here? Charge is a scalar quantity. So yeah, I can put a tick here. Charge is a scalar quantity. I can put a tick here. Momentum is not a scalar quantity. Power is a scalar quantity. Upthrust is not a scalar quantity. बेटा कोई भी type की force हो, any type of force, either it be upthrust, weight, it will be a vector quantity. Always remember that. Let's further move ahead. A uniform cylinder has a diameter d, length L and mass m. Perfect. Length L, mass m, diameter is d. Perfect. The density of the cylinder is given by this. Okay, so this is the formula for density of the cylinder. Pretty evident how this formula would have been derived. हमने क्या किया होगा, mass over volume वाली चीज लगाई होगी. Since it is a cylinder, your volume would have been what, pi r square L या फिर pi r square pi d square over 4L. तो ये आपको याद करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. This formulas will be given in the examination. This is just for the mathematics students. Table 1.1 shows data obtained from an experiment to determine the density of the cylinder. Okay, so this is a data obtained from an experiment. You have to calculate the percentage uncertainties. How can you calculate the percentage uncertainty in D? You will take the absolute uncertainty, that is 0.1, divided by the actual value 26.2 multiplied by 100. What does this answer come out to be? बेटा ये आंसर क्या आ जाता है? 0.4%. The answer here comes out to be 0.4%. Let's do the same for L. 1 divided by 162 into 100. What does this come out to be? बेटा ये कितना आ जाती है uncertainty? What does this uncertainty come out to be? This uncertainty comes out to be 0.6%. Simple as that, nothing complicated. Let's write it here. Calculate the percentage uncertainties in D and L. We have done that. Perfect. Let's further move ahead. You have to calculate the density of the cylinder. Give your answer to three significant figures. Okay, so you have to calculate the density of the material. How will you do that? How are you going to calculate the density of the cylinder? How are you going to calculate the density of the cylinder? Any ideas? क्या करोगे? How will you calculate the density of the cylinder? You have the value of mass, you have the value of L, you have the value of D. सिर्फ plug and play, सिर्फ plug and play. And you have to also make sure कि units क्या हैं. See, the units of density are kg meter minus 3. So your mass will be in kg, your measurements will be in meters. You have to take care of that. Okay, let's start applying the formula. Density is equals to 4 into m divided by pi du square into L. What is the mass? Mass is 247. 247 into 10 raised to the power of minus 3. Why did I did that? To convert grams into kilograms. Now, pi into du square. Pi into du square. Okay. What is du square? What is du square, beta? D की value is given as 26.2 perfect, but this is in millimeter. What will we do here? 26.2 into 10 raised to the power of negative 3 whole square. What is the value of L? 162 into 10 raised to the power of negative 3. Since this is also in millimeter, can anyone calculate the value of density? Beta density की value कोई calculate करेगा? This comes out to be 2.83 into 10 raised to the power of 3. Density की value comes out to be what? 2.83 into 10 raised to the power of 3. 2.83 into 10 raised to the power of 3 kg m minus 3. Simple. Calculate the percentage uncertainty in density. You have to calculate the percentage uncertainty in density. How are you going to calculate the percentage uncertainty in density? ठीक है. How are you going to calculate the percentage uncertainty in density? Yes. परसेंटेज अनसर्टेनिटी इंटेंसिटी कैसे निकालेंगे बेटा? वेरी वेरी इजी. डू यू रिमेंबर द फॉर्मूला? यस, ये आपका फॉर्मूला है 4m डिवाइडेड बाय पाई डी स्क्वायर ओवर एल. डेंसिटी is equals to 4m डिवाइडेड बाय पाई डी स्क्वायर इंटू एल. तो अगर आपने डेंसिटी की अनसर्टेनिटी निकालनी है बेटा, तो डेंसिटी की अनसर्टेनिटी में कौन कौन से वेरिएबल आएंगे? मास, diameter and length. So you can write here density uncertainty is equals to the uncertainty in mass plus the uncertainty in length plus 2 times the uncertainty in diameter. Why have I placed the 2 here? Because diameter is squared here. Because diameter is squared here. What is the percentage uncertainty of mass? 0.4. The percentage uncertainty of mass is 0.4. What is the percentage uncertainty of L? The percentage uncertainty of L is 0.6. Perfect. What is the percentage uncertainty of D? The percentage uncertainty of D is 0.4. Perfect. Multiply this as well. What does your answer comes out to be? Zero point 0.4 plus zero point 0.6 plus zero point 0.8. The answer comes out to be 1.8%. The percentage uncertainty in density comes out to be 1.8%. Nothing complicated here. Let's move on to the next question. If you have any questions, obviously you can ask me in the chat. A ball on horizontal ground is kicked towards a vertical wall. Perfect. A ball on horizontal ground is kicked towards a vertical wall. Just by seeing the diagram. If you are a good student, if you are my student, you might know just by seeing the diagram, this is a projectile motion ka question. Perfect. The ball has an initial velocity u at an angle of 30 degree to the ground. Perfect. The ball has an initial velocity of u at an angle of 38 degree to the ground. The ball travels a horizontal distance of 9 meter. The ball travels a horizontal distance of 9 meter before striking the wall at height h above the ground. Perfect. The horizontal component UH of the initial velocity of the ball is this. Perfect. So the horizontal component of the velocity is what? 9.5 ms minus 1. Perfect. Show that the time taken for the ball to reach the wall is 0.95 seconds. अच्छा बेटा देखो, बहुत ही सिंपल सा सवाल पूछा है, कुछ भी कॉम्प्लिकेट नहीं हुआ. You are given the horizontal velocity 9.5 ms minus 1. You are given the horizontal velocity as what? 9.5 ms minus 1. The horizontal distance is 9 meters. Perfect. So you have the velocity 9.5 ms minus 1. The distance is 9 meters. Can you calculate the time? Yeah. Time is equals to what? Distance d divided by the velocity. Distance d is 9. Velocity is 9.5. Can you calculate the answer? 9 divided by 9.5. Your answer comes out to be 0.95. Your answer comes out to be 0.95 seconds. Simple. Calculate the vertical component of the initial velocity of the ball. You have to calculate the vertical component of the initial velocity of the ball. Sir, what was the answer of density? Answer of density ये तो लिखा हुआ मैंने 2.83 into 10 raised to the power of 3. दिख रहा है स्क्रीन पे 2.83 into 10 raised to the power of 3. Let's continue with this question. So now you have to calculate the vertical component of the initial velocity of the ball. So how will you calculate the vertical component? Very, very easy. Beta, you know that the horizontal component is 9.5. Perfect. So if the horizontal component is 9.5, if the horizontal component is 9.5, let me do the working here. This 9.5, this 9.5 is equals to what? This 9.5 is equals to what? This 9.5 is equals to u cosine 38. Can you calculate the value of u? Yes, 9.5 divided by cosine 38. This is 38, my bad. What does your value of u come out to be? 9.5 divided by cosine 38. What does your value of u comes out to be? 12. The value of u comes out to be 12.1 ms minus 1 is u. Can you calculate the vertical component? Beta, can you calculate this initial vertical component? Yes, this is u sine 38. U की value is 12.1. Sine of 38. Can you calculate this? Answer multiplied by sine of 38. This gives you a value of 7.4. This gives you a value of 7.4 ms minus 1. So the initial vertical velocity is 7.42. The initial vertical velocity is 7.42 ms minus 1. Now, obviously, you can put all this working in the space below. Obviously, you can put all this working here, beta. अच्छा इसको भी यहाँ पे put in कर what should I do? चलो let's put it on the downside. This will be easier for you guys to memorize once you are seeing the annotated past papers. Yeah, overview, whatever you have to do. Now you have to determine the height edge. Now you have to determine the height edge. How are we going to determine the height edge? Again, very, very, very easy. If you analyze what is the time taken to reach height edge? What is the time taken to reach height edge? The time taken to reach height edge is 0.95 seconds. Perfect. So let's write this here. The time is 0.95 seconds. The initial vertical velocity is what? 7.42 ms minus 1. And do you realize one thing that I haven't highlighted here? What is one favorite statement of mine? What is one favorite statement of mine and the examiner? Air resistance is negligible. That means acceleration is 9.81 ms minus 2. You only know the magnitude of the acceleration. Beta, you only know the magnitude of the acceleration. How are you going to calculate the sign of the acceleration? Acceleration का sign किस तरह पता चलेगा मुझे सर? Very, very easy. For that, you will mark the axes. You will say the upward axis is positive, the downward vectors are negative. Hence, acceleration or since acceleration due to gravity acts downwards, this acceleration will be negative 9.81 ms minus 2. Let's write it. Acceleration is negative 9.81 ms minus 2. Can you calculate the distance in the vertical direction? Can you calculate the distance in the vertical direction, or in other words, can you calculate this h? Yes, very, very easy. Which formula are we going to apply? S is equals to ut plus half at square. S is equals to ut plus half at square. What is u? What is u? 7.42. What is time t? 0.95 plus half into the acceleration, that is negative 9.81, into time curve square, that is 0.95 square. What does your value of s comes out to be? What does your value of s comes out to be? Any geniuses in the chat? बेटा कोई ये वैल्यू कैलकुलेट करके मुझे बताएगा, or would I have to take out a calculator? The value of h comes out to be 2.6 meters. 2.6 meters is your answer. Simple as that, nothing complicated. Let's further move ahead. The speed of the ball after striking the wall is less than its speed just before striking the ball. Perfect. State what this indicates about the nature of the collision of the ball with the wall. तो बेटा बहुत सिंपल सी बात कह रहा है एग्जामिनर, बहुत सिंपल सी बात कह रहा है. सर वाई कांट वी यूज वी स्क्वायर इज इक्वल टू यू स्क्वायर प्लस 2as. बेटा आपको फाइनल वेलोसिटी पता है? बच्चे मुझे बताओ एट दिस पॉइंट क्या आपको फाइनल वेलोसिटी पता है? A student is suggesting, sir, use v square is equals to u square plus 2as to calculate this height h. Why can't we use that? Because v is not given. Final velocity is not given. क्यों use करेंगे हम? हमें distance भी नहीं पता, final velocity भी नहीं पता. Why are we going to do that? That's why we will not use that here. Okay. Now, what is the examiner saying? The examiner is saying that let's say this is a wall. Let's say this is a wall. And let's say the ball was hitting the wall with a velocity of 6 ms minus 1. It is rebounding with a lesser speed 4 ms minus 1. What does this tells us about the nature of the collision? The collision is inelastic. The collision is inelastic because there is loss of energy. The collision is inelastic. Simple, you can just write it here. You can just write it here. Chalo, let's move ahead. Let's move ahead. यार बड़े ही तुम लोग जो है ना वेरी गुड okay so again I have a very genius suggestion but I will ask you guys why will you do that. V square is equals to u square plus 2as is being utilized to calculate this value of h. Perfect. We don't have s, we don't have v. A student is suggesting, sir, I will utilize this equation. V is equals to u plus 80 to calculate v. And then place it here and then calculate s. If you have so much time in the examination, yeah, you can do that. अगर आपने करना है बेटा तो पहले ये इक्वेशन लगा दो फिर ये लगा दो दैट्स डूएबल बट दैट इज ऑब्वियसली टाइम कंज्यूमिंग चलो लेट्स मूव अहेड state the condition for a system to be in equilibrium. What are the conditions for a system to be in equilibrium? Resultant force must be equal to 0 and resultant moment must be equal to 0. For an object to be in equilibrium, the resultant force must be equal to 0 and resultant moment must also be equal to 0. Figure 3.1 shows an airship in flight. Perfect. The airship is propelled by identical fans that can be angled to control the motion of the airship. Perfect. The upthrust of the airship is this. Okay, so the upthrust of the airship is 93,000 Newton. The density of the air surrounding is this. Calculate the volume of the air displaced by the airship. How are we going to calculate that? We know upthrust is equals to density into gravitational field strength into the volume of the object. Beta, what is the upthrust? 93,000. What is the density? 1.2. What is gravitational field strength? 9.81. What is the volume of the object or volume of the air displaced? 93,000 divided by 1.2 into 9.8. Can you calculate this volume of the object? This volume of the object comes out to be what? 7900 meter cube. Simple. When fully loaded, the weight of the airship is greater than the upthrust. Perfect. Remember this line. When fully loaded, the weight of the airship is greater than the upthrust. Perfect. To maintain horizontal flight, the fans provide a total vertical force of this upwards. Perfect on the airship. Calculate the mass of the airship. बेटा इससे easy सवाल हो नहीं सकता. इससे easy सवाल हो नहीं सकता. So what is happening? There is a downward weight acting like this. Perfect. There is an upthrust acting like this. And there is an upward force. And there is an upward force. Perfect. So what will happen? Let's label this upward force as F. Let's label this upward force as F. U plus F is equals to weight. What is the upthrust? 93,000. What is force? What is force? What is the upward force that you are applying? 3 into 10 raised to the power of 3. 3 into 10 raised to the power of 3. This equals to your weight. What will your answer come out to be? 93,000 plus 3 into 10 raised to the power of 3. This comes out to be 96,000. This comes out to be 96,000 Newton as your weight. Can you calculate the mass now? Very, very easy. Let me bring this working downward. You now just have to divide it by what? 9.81 to calculate the mass. Beta, now weight is equals to what? 96,000. Mass into 9.81 is equals to 96,000. Can you calculate the mass? जी बिल्कुल 96,000 divided by 9.81. What is the mass? 96,000 divided by 9.81. Beta, what is the mass? 9,800 kg is your mass. Simple as that, nothing complicated. Let's further move ahead. At a certain time, the airship is stationary. Beta, what do I mean by stationary? The thrust force exerted by a fan on the airship is this perfect. To produce this force, a mass of 64 kg of air is propelled through the blades of the fan in a time of this. बेटा आपके पास mass है, time है. Assume that air is initially stationary at the entrance of the fan. तो चलो मैं इसकी एक डायग्राम बना देता हूँ. Although I'm very very bad at drawings, लेकिन चलो ट्राई करते हैं भाई. Let's try it for you guys. ये let's say एक fan है. Yeah, let's say ये एक fan है, ठीक है. Now इस fan में बेटा क्या हो रहा है? Initially stationary velocity से, that is velocity 0 से air आ रही है. And when this air leaves the fan, it is at a velocity of what? We don't know. We don't know the velocity of the final air. Okay. You have to calculate the change in momentum. Okay. You have to calculate the change in momentum of the air propelled through the fan's blade in this time. अच्छा आपने जो है वो चेंज इन मोमेंटम निकालना. तो बेटा यू कैन नॉट यूज दिस वाला फॉर्मूला. चेंज इन मोमेंटम इज इक्वल टू मास इनटू चेंज इन वेलोसिटी, मास इनटू final velocity minus initial velocity. You cannot use this formula. Why? Because you don't know the change in momentum, you don't know the final velocity. Whenever two variables are unknown, आप आगे calculation नहीं कर सकते. Now here I am stuck. However, if I have paid attention in the class, I wouldn't face trouble. Change in momentum over change in time is equals to force. Are you given the force 28,000? Are you given the change in time 0.5? Can you calculate the change in momentum? जी बिल्कुल. 28,000 into the change in time, that is 0.5. The change in momentum comes out to be 1400 kg ms minus 1. 1400. Now you have to calculate the speed of the air as it leaves the fan. बेटा ये speed of the air v निकालनी है. How will you do that? How will you do that? Now you can apply that formula. Change in momentum is equals to mass into change in velocity v minus u. What is the change in momentum? 1400. What is the mass? 64. 1400 is equals to 64 v minus u, that is 0. Perfect. 1400 divided by 64 is equals to v. V comes out to be what? 1400 divided by 64. This comes out to be 21.8. This comes out to be 21.9, you can say. ms minus 1 is your velocity. Simple. 21.9 is your velocity final. Perfect. You have to calculate the total kinetic energy of this air due to the movement through the fan. बेटा आप टोटल काइनेटिक एनर्जी निकालनी है. एएस में आ गए हो. इससे इजी सवाल क्या हो सकता है? 1/2 mv². What is the mass? What is the mass of the air? 64. What is the velocity, beta? 21.9 square. I always prefer to write my answer till three significant figures so that I don't lose too much of the information. If anyone is concerned about that, 15300 joules is your answer. Simple. Let's further move ahead. I always write my answer till three significant figures. If you want to write the answer till two significant figures, I will give you full marks and the examiner will as well. Figure 4.1 shows the variation with extension of the tensile force for two wires G and H. Perfect. So this is the force versus extension graph for two wires G and H made from the same material. Now why has the examiner written same material here? This basically means that both the wires have same Young's modulus or same value of E. Perfect. Let's further move ahead. Let's further move ahead. Let's further move ahead. Now, the elastic limit has not exceeded for G or H. Beta, the elastic limit has not exceeded for G or for H. Perfect. For the lines in figures 4.1, state what is represented by the gradient. What is represented by the gradient of these lines? Do you remember the gradient of a force versus extension graph is what? Spring constant. The gradient of force versus extension graph is spring constant. Simple. Explain why the area under the line represents the elastic potential energy of the wire. Beta, why the area under the line represents the elastic potential energy of the wire? Because the area under the line shows what? The area under the line shows what? The area under the line basically shows you what? The area under the line shows you what? Work done by the spring. And work done by the spring is equals to what? Elastic potential energy. So you can write this. You can say that the area under the line shows what? Work done by the spring. Work done by the spring. And work done by the spring. And work done by the spring is equals to what? Work done by the spring is equal to elastic potential energy. Simple as that. Simple as that. Let's further move ahead. Wire G and H are joined together end to end to form a composite wire of negligible weight. Wire G and H are formed together end to end to form a composite wire of negligible weight. The wire hangs vertically from a fixed support. Okay, so this is the diagram. Perfect. A block of weight 2 न्यूटन is attached to the end of the wire. Perfect. बेटा एक ब्लॉक है जो वेट 2 न्यूटन का है वो अटैच हो रहा है वायर के एंड पे. Perfect. Determine the extension of wire G and the extension of wire H. You have to determine the extension of wire G and the extension of wire H. Now, if a block of 2 Newton, if a block of 2 Newton is attached here, this means what? This wire will also have 2 Newton ki force. This wire will also have 2 Newton ki force. So, if wire G has a force of 2 Newton, if wire G has a force of 2 Newton, what is the extension? Let's draw a dotted line here. Yeah, somewhere here. That is 0.39. So if wire G has a force of 2 Newton, this will have an extension of 0.39. Let's write it here. 0.39 millimeter. Now if your wire H, if your wire H has a force of 2 Newton, what will be the extension? If your wire H has a force of 2 Newton, what will be the extension? This will be 0.29. Let's write it here, 0.29. Perfect. 0.29 is your extension of wire H. Perfect. Calculate the elastic potential energy of the composite wire due to the weight of the block. बेटा हमने elastic potential energy निकालनी है of the composite wire. How will we do that? Elastic potential energy of the composite wire will be equal to what? Elastic potential energy of wire G plus the elastic potential energy of wire H. What will be the elastic potential energy of wire G? 1 upon 2 into the force, that is 2 into the extension ka square, that is 0.39 into 10 raised to the power of minus 3 ka whole square. Why have I placed a minus 3 here, beta? Because the extension was in millimeters. How will you calculate the elastic potential energy of H? 1 upon 2 into the force into the extension, that is 0.29, 10 raised to the power of minus 3 whole square. What does your elastic potential energy comes out to be? My elastic potential energy comes out to be 6.8 into 10 raised to the power of minus 4 joules. Simple as that. My elastic potential energy comes out to be 6.8 into 10 raised to the power of minus 4 joules. Nothing complicated here. Do you guys get this? बेटा ये समझ आ गई। चलो आगे बढ़ते हैं, लेट्स मूव अहेड। आगे बढ़ते हैं, लेट्स मूव अहेड। नाउ व्हाट डू वी हैव टू कैलकुलेट नेक्स्ट? अब नेक्स्ट क्या निकालना है? वी हैव टू कैलकुलेट द रेशो ऑफ द क्रॉस सेक्शनल एरिया ऑफ वायर जी divided by the cross sectional area of wire H. Okay, cross sectional area of wire G divided by the cross sectional area of wire H हमने calculate करना है. How are we going to do that? First of all, realize that Young's modulus is equals to what? FL over AE. Can you make area the subject? Yeah, area is equals to FL over the Young's modulus into the extension. बेटा एरिया किसके इक्वल है? एफ एल डिवाइडेड बाई यंग मॉड्यूलस इनटू एक्सटेंशन, सिंपल. Now, how will you calculate the area of cross-sectional wire G? How will you calculate the area of cross-sectional wire G? Very, very easy. बेटा वायर G पे कितनी फोर्स लग रही है? How much force was being applied on wire G? If you analyze, the force on wire G was 2 Newton. Perfect. Let's write it here. What is the length of wire G? The length of wire G is L. Perfect. What is the Young's modulus of wire G? E. What is the extension of wire G? The extension of wire G was 0.39 millimeters. So 0.39 into 10 raised to the power of minus 3. Perfect. Divided by the area of H. What will be the area of H? Force, that is 2, into the length, that is 1.5 L, divided by the Young's modulus E, multiplied by the extension, that is 0.29 into 10 raised to the power of negative 3. What will happen further? 2, 2 cancel out, L, L cancel out, E, E cancel out, negative 3, negative 3. Oh, 10 is the power of negative 3, 10 is the power of negative 3 cancel out. What will happen? This 0.29 will go into the numerator. The 0.29 goes into the numerator, and in the denominator, what do we have? 0.39 and 1.5. 1.5 and 0.39. What will your ratio come out to be? Your ratio comes out to be 0.5. Nothing complicated here. बहुत ही easy है. चलो लेट्स मूव एट. बेटा मूवीज वापस कैलकुलेट करके देखो. मुझे नहीं लगता कि ये आपका आंसर करेक्ट है. वापस कैलकुलेट करके देख लो, आई गेस सही आ जाएगा. चलो लेट्स मूव अहेड. लेट्स सी दिस क्वेश्चन. Two point sources A and B, perfect. So these are 2 point sources A and B, produce coherent electromagnetic waves. The waves from A and B are emitted in phase and have wavelength of lambda. Perfect. The waves are emitted in phase and they have a wavelength of lambda. Perfect. Now, the lines on figure 5.1 represent wavefronts. All the points on a wavefront are in phase. All the points on the wavefront are in phase. Perfect. सारे के सारे points on the wavefront are in phase. Perfect. On figure 5.1, mark with a cross the position of an interference maximum. Label this point Y. बेटा इंटरफेरेंस मैक्सिमम कहाँ होती है? इंटरफेरेंस मैक्सिमम कहाँ होती है? when two crests combine. You can label this point as your interference maximum. Because these lines are what? बेटा ये lines जो बनी हुई हैं वो क्या है? They are crest. ये जो solid lines बनी हुई हैं, these are what? These solid lines are your crest. The point where two crests meets will give you rise to interference maximum. Perfect. The position of an interference minimum. Where does an interference minimum form? Where a crest and a turf forms. बेटा ये जो दो solid lines हैं उनके बीच में you will have a turf like this, a dotted turf. This is not drawn, but this should have been drawn. The line between these two solid lines will be your turf. So maybe you are getting, if let's say this is your turf, this combines with the crest at this point. So let's say this is your intensity minimum. Simple. Beta, please remember that these solid lines are what? crest of a wave. These solid lines are crest of a wave. In between these crests, you will have turfs, which I am drawing with red dotted lines. In between these crests, we have red dotted lines that are known as turfs. Perfect. When a crest and a turf combine, you have a intensity minimum. When a crest and a crest combine, you have a intensity maximum. I hope this is clear to all of you. The waves in हाँ चलो मैं पूछ भी लेता हूँ बेटा ये पार्ट ए क्लियर हुआ 5 का बताओ मुझे क्वेश्चन 5 का पार्ट ए क्लियर है बेटा कैन यू सी दीज आर टू पॉइंट सोर्सेज ए एंड बी they both produce coherent waves. The waves A and B are emitted in phase and have wavelength lambda perfect. बेटा ये जो solid lines है ये जो solid lines है these are what? These are crest. These are crest of the two waves A and B. These are crest of the two waves A and B. Perfect. The point where the two crests combine. The point where the two crests combine. That is this crest and this crest will give rise to what? Will give rise to intensity maximum. So this is your intensity maximum. You can label this as Y. बेटा this is your opinion barogative. आप इन सारे रेड पॉइंट्स को इंटेंसिटी मैक्सिमम कह सकते हो. You can say all these points as intensity maximum. Why? Because at all these points, what is happening? Your crest are combining with crest. Do you get it? समझ आई बच्चों अब? You can mark all these red points as intensity maximum because here crest are combining with crest. Perfect. But I just want to mark one point. I just want to mark one point, so I will mark this as Y. Now, between two crest, between two yellow highlighted region, between two crest, we have what? We have a turf. Between two crests, beta, we have what? We have a turf. Like this. Like this. Between two crests, we have a turf like this. Simple. Simple. Same happens here. Between two crests, we have a turf. बेटा दो crest के बीच में we have a turf. Can you see these dotted lines that I am making? These are turfs. These are turfs. These are turfs. Whenever a crest and a turf meets, whenever a crest and a turf meets, this will give rise to what? This will give rise to interference minimum. So let's say you have this turf here. Can you see this turf is meeting the crest at this point? This will be your interference minimum point Z. This will be point Z. Simple. I am erasing all of it because this looks really, really untidy. Sure. Let's further move ahead. Now, let's see part B. The waves in air have a wavelength of this. Perfect. An interference pattern is detected along a line parallel to AB and a perpendicular distance of 140 meters from AB. Perfect. The spacing between adjacent interference pattern is 1.2 centimeter. So this is X, perfect. And interference pattern, take care. This is D. This is lambda. You have to calculate separation A and B. You will say X is equals to lambda D over A. X is what? 1.2 centimeter. 1.2 into 10 raised to the power of minus 2. Lambda is what? 2.9 into 10 raised to the power of negative 5. D is what? 140. Can you calculate this A? Yeah. Make A the subject. A divided by 1.2 2 into 10 raised to the power of minus 2. Can you calculate the value of a, beta? Can you calculate the value of a? Yes, very easy. Easy peasy. The answer comes out to be 0.34 meters. State the principal region of electromagnetic spectrum to which waves belong. बेटा वेवलेंथ देख के आपको क्या लग रहा है? टू विच रीजन डू दीज वेव्स बिलोंग? टू विच रीजन डू दीज वेव्स बिलोंग? Infrared. This is something that you will have to memorize. I have given you a table of electromagnetic spectrum waves and their respective wavelength. You have to memorize that. A train travels at constant speed along a horizontal track towards an observer. So, towards is an important point here. Standing adjacent to the track as shown. Perfect, perfect. And this is a train traveling towards an observer. The train sounds its horns continuously as it approaches the observer. The horn emits a sound of 251 hertz. So this is the frequency of the sound. This is the frequency of the sound. The frequency of the sound heard by the observer is this F naught. Okay. The speed of the sound in the air is this 340 ms minus 1 vs. Calculate the speed of train. You have to calculate the speed of train. How are you going to do that? Yes. Yes, मैं वहाँ पे शेयर कर दूंगा टेबल. Don't worry about that. Can you calculate the speed of the train? Yes. Frequency observed is equals to what? Frequency of sound multiplied by the speed of sound divided by the speed of sound minus the velocity of the train. Let's say this is the velocity of the train. Why have you applied this formula, sir? Because whenever a sound emitting source is moving towards an observer, you will apply this formula. What is the frequency observed? 291. What is the frequency observed? 291. What is the frequency of sound? 251 into the velocity of sound, that is 340, divided by the velocity of sound, 340 minus the speed of train. Can you calculate the answer? Yes. 340 minus V is equals to what? 251 into 340 divided by 291. Perfect. Let's calculate this answer. 340 minus 251 into 340 divided by 291. What does your velocity comes out to be? Velocity comes out to be 46.7 ms minus 1. Perfect. Let's further move ahead. अच्छा जी, लेट्स सी क्या लिखा हुआ है यहाँ पे. लेट्स सी. The train approaches and then passes the observer. Perfect. The intensity of the sound heard by the observer varies with distance d of the horn from the observer. अच्छा बेटा, इंटेंसिटी किस तरह वेरी कर रही है विद द डिस्टेंस बिटवीन द हॉर्न एंड द ऑब्जर्वर? यू आर गिवन दिस इन द ग्राफ. Perfect. When the horn is at a distance of x naught from the observer, the intensity of the sound is I naught. बेटा जब distance x naught है तो intensity I naught है. Perfect. And the amplitude of this at this time is a naught. ठीक है, amplitude at this time is a naught. चलो यहाँ पे हमने a naught कर दिया. ठीक है. Figure 6.2 shows the variation with distance of intensity as the train moves away from the observer. ठीक है बेटा, जैसे जैसे ट्रेन अवे फ्रॉम द अगर जैसे जैसे ट्रेन अवे फ्रॉम द ऑब्जर्वर जा रही है, ठीक है, क्या होता? जैसे जैसे ट्रेन अवे फ्रॉम द ऑब्जर्वर जा रही है आपकी इंटेंसिटी कम हो रही है. ठीक है. व्हाट विल हैपन टू योर एम्पलीट्यूड? व्हाट विल हैपन टू योर एम्पलीट्यूड? थोड़ा सा सोचो, थोड़ा सा सोचो. If you realize we have studied one formula. Intensity is directly proportional to amplitude square. We have also studied one more formula. Amplitude square is equals to what? 1 over the distance squared. बेटा हमने दो फॉर्मूलाज पढ़े. एक था इंटेंसिटी इज डायरेक्टली प्रोपोर्शनल टू एम्पलीट्यूड का स्क्वायर. व्हाट इज द सेकंड फॉर्मूला? एम्पलीट्यूड का स्क्वायर इज इनवर्सली प्रोपोर्शनल टू डिस्टेंस का स्क्वायर. ठीक है, ये दो फॉर्मूलाज हमने रटे हुए हैं या पढ़े हुए. नाउ कैन आई डू वन थिंग? कैन आई रिप्लेस दिस? can I replace this logic by this k? Can I say that बेटा क्या मैं ये कैसे ओहो आई हैव मेड अ ब्लंडर हियर माय बैड बेटा हमने दो फार्मूलाज पढ़े इंटेंसिटी इज डायरेक्टली प्रोपोर्शनल टू एम्पलीट्यूड स्क्वायर and the second formula was that intensity is inversely proportional to 1 over d square ये दोनों formulas हमने पढ़े intensity is directly proportional to amplitude square and intensity is inversely proportional to distance का square can you write it like this amplitude square is inversely proportional to 1 over d square. Can you take square roots on both sides? Yes, take square roots on both sides. Amplitude is inversely proportional to distance. Take square roots on both sides and amplitude is inversely proportional to the distance. Perfect. अब आपने amplitude और distance का ग्राफ बनाना है. Now you have to draw the graph of amplitude and distance. किस तरह बनाओगे बेटा? किस तरह बनाओगे? अगर आपका distance double हो गया है, if your distance doubles, what will happen to the amplitude? What will happen to the amplitude? अगर initially starting में amplitude a नॉट था, अब let's say आपका distance double हो गया, what will happen? Your amplitude will become 0.5 somewhere here. Now अगर आपका distance 4 times हो गया, what will happen to your amplitude? Your amplitude will be 0.25. ये आ गया पॉइंट. अब आई बात समझ में? यस और नो? आर यू गाइस गेटिंग दिस? अगर एम्पलीट्यूड डबल हो गया बेटा डिस्टेंस हाफ हो जाएगा. एम्पलीट्यूड 4 टाइम्स हो जाएगा, सॉरी डिस्टेंस 4 टाइम्स हो जाएगा तो एम्पलीट्यूड भी 4 टाइम्स डिक्रीज कर जाएगा. चलो इसको मैं लिख भी देता हूँ यार तुम लोगों के लिए. एक सेकंड में लिख भी देता हूँ इसको यहाँ पे. यू कैन से एज एम्पलीट्यूड doubles, or you can say as distance doubles. As distance doubles, amplitude will become half. As distance become 4 times, amplitude will become 1 over 4 times. That's what I have done here. अब इसके थ्रू आपने एक कर्व टाइप बना लेना. ओहो 1 second. See, very very bad drawing. You can do it much better than me. इस तरह से आपने कर्व बना लेना. Simple. Let's further move ahead. State the relationship between amplitude and intensity of a progressive wave. क्या कहोगे? Amplitude is directly proportional. Intensity is directly proportional to amplitude square. On figure 6.3, sketch the variation. ये हमने कर लिया. We have done the graph as well. Perfect. Let's further move ahead. State Ohm's law. What does Ohm's law state? Voltage is directly proportional to current. Given that, given that, given that temperature remains constant. Temperature remains constant. Perfect. Let's further move ahead भाई आगे बढ़ते हैं. A battery of electromotive force 6.2 volts and negligible internal resistance is connected to a circuit of uniform resistance via a voltmeter, a fixed resistor and a switch as shown in figure 7.1. Perfect. The resistance wire has a resistance of 18 ohms. Perfect. इस resistance wire की resistance क्या है बेटा? 18 ohms. Length is 0.94. Cross sectional area is 7.2 into 10 raised to the power of negative 8. The slider is positioned halfway along the length of the wire. ठीक है, slider positioned है halfway along the length of the wire. Calculate the resistivity of the material of the resistance wire. बेटा हमने resistance wire की resistivity calculate करनी है. Resistance is equals to resistivity length divided by area. बेटा क्या हमें resistance given है? Yes, 18 multiplied by area 7.2 into 10 raised to the power of negative 8 divided by the length that is 0.94. What does your resistivity comes out to be? What does your resistivity comes out to be? Resistivity बेटा आपकी क्या आती है? 1.4 into 10 raised to the power of minus 6. 1.4 into 10 raised to the power of minus 6. Perfect. The switch is open. State the reading on the voltmeter. Perfect. If the switch is open, what will be the reading on the voltmeter? If you have positioned this halfway in between, तो बेटा 0.94 meters को पूरा कितना वोल्टेज मिल रहा था? 6.2 volts. If you have positioned this halfway in between, this is what? 0.46 meters. No, 0.47 meters. This will be 0.47 meters. At a length of 0.47 meters, what will be your voltage? X. Cross multiplied X comes out to be 3.1 volts. X comes out to be 3.1 volts. Nothing complicated. Let's then move ahead. The switch is now closed. Perfect. The switch is now closed. State whether there is an increase, decrease, or no change to the current in the battery, the voltmeter reading. Perfect. You have to suggest whether there will be an increase, decrease, or no change in the current in the battery and the voltmeter reading. Perfect. Now, if you close the switch, what happens? बेटा इफ यू क्लोज द स्विच, अगर गौर से आप देखो तो रेजिस्टेंस क्या कर जाएगी? डिक्रीज. वाई विल द रेजिस्टेंस डिक्रीज? Because now if you realize this resistance wire and this resistor have become parallel circuit, hence the resistance decreases, current increases. You can write here resistance decreases, current increases. Simple. What will happen to the voltmeter reading? The voltmeter reading will decrease. Why is that so? Beta, why will the voltmeter reading decrease? Why will the voltmeter reading decrease? Because the combined resistance of these two parallel things, that is the resistance wire and the resistor, will decrease. Hence, as the resistance decreases, according to voltage is directly proportional to resistance. As resistance decreases, voltage decreases. Simple as that. The switch remains closed. The slider is now moved along the resistance wire so that the voltmeter reading is 3.1. अच्छा, voltmeter reading आपने 3.1 कर दी किसी तरह. On figure 3.1, draw a cross on the resistance wire to show a possible new position of the slider. अच्छा बेटा, अगर आपने अब वापस से 3.1 की रीडिंग लानी है, so what will you do? If you again want a reading of 3.1, what will you do? You will place the slider where? बेटा स्लाइडर को कहाँ प्लेस करोगे? Yes, you will place the slider more towards the right. You will place the slider more towards the right. Let's say somewhere here. We have to make a cross, and how do we have to label it? Okay, we just have to draw a cross. Perfect. The circuit in B is altered by changing the battery for one of a different EMF. ठीक है, एक different EMF की हमने battery लगा दी है. The switch is open. Okay, now the switch is open. The student records the following data for the resistance wire. The current in the wire is this. Number of charge carrier is this. Mean drift speed. Okay, we are given the drift velocity. Number of charge carriers is also given. Perfect. Determine the charge Q of a charge carrier in the wire suggested by this data. बेटा हमने चार्ज निकालना है, कौन सा फॉर्मूला लगाएंगे? करंट इज इक्वल टू व्हाट? याद है किसी को? व्हाट इज करंट इक्वल टू? एन ए वी क्यू. एन ए वी क्यू. Okay, do you have the current? Yes, 0.93. Perfect. Do you have N? That is the number of charge carriers. Yes, 9 into 10 is the power of 28. Do you have the velocity? Yes, 1.3 into 10 is the power of negative 3. Do you have the area? बेटा area है आपके पास? Yes. What was the area? 7.2 into 10 raised to the power of negative 8. Plug that in as well. बेटा ये भी plug in कर दो. 7.2 into 10 raised to the power of negative 8. 7.2 into 10 raised to the power of negative 8. What does your charge comes out to be? बेटा चार्ज किसके इक्वल आता है? 1.1 इंटू 10 raised to the power of -19 coulombs. 1.1 into 10 raised to the power of -19 coulombs is your charge. Perfect. State with reference to the value of Q. Explain why the data recorded by the student cannot be correct. Beta, do you guys remember that charges are quantized? Do you guys remember that charges are quantized? Charges are in multiples of what? Charges are in multiples of 1.6 into 10 raised to the power of -19 coulombs. Charges are in multiples of what? Charges are in multiples of 1.6 into 10 raised to the power of -19 coulombs. This is not a multiple of 1.6 into 10 raised to the power of -19 coulombs. Hence why this cannot be your value of charge. Hence why the value recorded by the student are incorrect. You can write it here. 1.1. You can write 1.1 into 10 raised to the power of -19 is not a multiple of 1.6 into 10 raised to the power of -19 coulomb. Hence, the data is incorrect. Hence, the data is incorrect. Hence, the data recorded by student is what? Is incorrect. Simple as that. Let's further move ahead. भाई आगे बढ़ते. The last question for today. The nuclide 23 magnesium is an isotope of magnesium that undergoes beta positive decay to form a new nuclide X according to the equation. Perfect. Beta, whenever you are undergoing beta positive decay, what happens? Whenever you are undergoing beta positive decay, what happens? Beta positive decay undergo करते हो तो क्या होता है? Your proton number decreases by 1. 12 से क्या हो जाएगा? 11. Mass number remains unchanged. This is 23. Perfect. What further happens? You have this as your beta positive particle. Beta positive particle ka mass number 0. Proton number 1. Four numbers are missing from the equation. Perfect. For the nuclide 23, 12 magnesium, state what is represented by 23 and what is represented by 12. बेटा मार्क्स देने का तरीका एग्जामिनर से देखो. 23 is what? Nucleon number. A very easy way to gift you 2 marks. Nucleon number. What is 12? Proton number. What is the next part? Complete the equation. We have done that. State the name of the group slash class of fundamental particles to which positron and neutrino belong. Leptons. बेटा leptons involve what? Positron and neutrino. Perfect. Last सवाल देख लो, then we end this paper. A radioactive source emits particles from its nuclei when it decays. Perfect. Figure 8.1 shows for the source the variation with kinetic energy with the number of particles emitted. State how figure 8.1 shows that these nuclei do not undergo beta decay. बेटा beta decay क्यों नहीं undergo कर रही? Because beta decay have a continuous range of kinetic energies. Here we have a single kinetic energy. You can say beta particles have a continuous range of kinetic energies. Beta particles have a continuous range of kinetic energy, and in figure 8.1 kinetic energy is constant. If you have any questions you can ask, Varna, we end this class.